What if the greatest war films ever made were not the famous blockbusters, but the forgotten ghosts left behind in the shadows of history? Imagine reels of film gathering dust while holding secrets of bravery, terror, and human sacrifice that few alive today even know existed. Why were these stories buried? Were they too raw, too honest, or too dangerous? Today we unlock the vault and reveal 13 great war movies no one seems to remember, yet every one of them deserves to be seen. Number 13. Attack on the Iron Coast, 1968. This mid-century war picture arrived with a daring reputation. It was seen as a bold attempt to capture the tense atmosphere of covert British naval raids during World War II. Audiences expected a traditional action adventure, but what they received was a story built on grief obsession and a dangerous military idea that pushed men to the breaking point. For that reason, viewers at the time found it unsettling, even though the film delivered courage and spectacle in equal measure. The story follows a British officer haunted by the loss of his wife and driven to lead a seemingly impossible attack on a German-held port. Imagine steel-gray seas pounding against a solitary vessel, racing into the heart of enemy fire. The film pulls us into the claustrophobic halls of a converted ship, where men wrestle with fear duty and the heavy silence that comes before battle. Every frame carries the weight of sacrifice, and every decision feels like the turning of fate. But here is the twist. Some critics whispered that the film struck too close to sensitive wartime wounds in Britain. Rumors circulated that officials viewed it as too critical of leadership decisions and too honest about misguided sacrifice. This murmur of disapproval created a quiet backlash. The studio grew nervous. Promotion was reduced. International releases were limited. The movie simply faded without a fight. Number 12. The Red Beret, 1953. This wartime drama began with a reputation for heroic adventure. It was marketed as a thrilling tribute to the elite British paratroopers who fought across Europe. At first glance, it seemed like a simple tale of bravery, but viewers soon discovered a deeper story filled with guilt, hidden identity, and emotional wounds that few films of the era dared to explore. That complexity caused confusion at release, and the movie quietly slipped from the spotlight. The film follows an American volunteer who joins the British airborne forces while hiding a painful secret from his past. Every scene reveals another layer of fear, loyalty, and silent inner struggle. When the final mission unfolds, the film becomes a rushing storm of gunfire, explosions, and desperation. Yet beneath the action lies a human story about redemption. Production troubles only deepened its fate. Weather halted outdoor scenes. Parachute stunts required dangerous low-elevation jumps, and several performers were bruised or injured. The leading actor reportedly disagreed with the director about the character's emotional depth, and their on-set tension cast a shadow over filming. Over time, the film drifted into obscurity. It rarely reappears on modern lists. Many younger viewers have never heard of it. Yet the few who seek it out describe a surprisingly intimate portrayal of wartime anguish. The Red Beret endures as a quiet reminder that heroism is rarely simple, and redemption often comes with a heavy price. Number 11. The Sea Chase, 1955. This maritime war adventure was once known for its star power and sweeping ocean vistas. It carried the reputation of a grand studio production built to draw large audiences. But despite its impressive cast and scale, it became overshadowed by more traditional war epics of the decade. Its darker tone and morally conflicted characters confused viewers who expected straightforward patriotism. Slowly, the film sank from public memory. The story follows a German freighter crew attempting to flee Allied forces at the start of World War II. What begins as a tense escape soon becomes a journey filled with moral doubt and rising danger. Imagine a ship cutting through stormy oceans while hunted from every direction. Picture exhausted sailors navigating betrayal, mutiny, and the crushing pressure of impending capture. The sea becomes a vast arena where survival depends on strategy, endurance, and uneasy alliances. Controversy soon clung to the production. Some critics whispered that the portrayal of a sympathetic German captain might anger post-war audiences. Others claimed the film softened real horrors by focusing on personal honor instead of political truth. A few rumors suggested that certain pressure groups discouraged strong promotion to avoid public backlash. In the years that followed, the Sea Chase drifted quietly into the background. It never developed a modern cult following. It rarely screens on television. Many today do not even know it exists. Yet those who revisit it now discover a striking moral drama set against a roaring ocean. Number 10. The Long Ships, 1964. This sweeping adventure picture arrived with the reputation of a bold studio gamble. Audiences expected a light action spectacle filled with Viking raids and heroic quests. Instead, they were given a dark, uneasy story about greed obsession and the brutal cost of ambition. Because it strayed from the cheerful adventure tone that studios preferred, the film made some viewers deeply uncomfortable. Its unusual blend of tone contributed to its slow disappearance from the mainstream. The plot follows a restless Viking named Rolf, who becomes obsessed with tales of a legendary bell forged from pure gold. Imagine towering northern seas, black with storm clouds. Picture longships cutting through freezing water while men chant in fear and fury. The search for the mythical bell leads Rolf into hostile kingdoms, bloody duels, and treacherous alliances. Beneath the adventure lies a haunting message about the human hunger for impossible treasures and the destruction it invites. But here is where the mystery deepens. Some whispered that the film's intense violence and bleak themes alarmed European distributors. Others claimed that the movie offended Scandinavian historians, who disliked its loose interpretation of Viking lore. Rumors circulated that several scenes were shortened after complaints from local governments. The production studio responded with caution and performed quiet edits that altered the flow of the story. The film stands as a reminder that treasure does not always shine, and that legends can crush the men who chase them. Its legacy whispers like a forgotten saga carried on the wind. Number 9. The Purple Plain, 1954. This wartime drama entered theaters carrying the reputation of a serious character study rather than a conventional action picture. Many viewers expected explosions and battlefield spectacle, but the film explored psychological wounds instead. That quieter approach made it stand apart from the heroic war films of the decade. Because audiences were not prepared for such emotional depth, the film quietly slipped from public attention. The story follows a Royal Canadian Air Force pilot stationed in Burma who suffers crushing grief after the loss of his wife. Imagine a man walking through blazing tropical heat with a heart cold from sorrow. His comrades fear that he has lost the will to live. A tragic crash forces him and 2 others to trek across a deadly plain where heat, hunger, and despair turn every step into a trial. The landscape becomes a symbol of the inner pain he fights to overcome. Some claimed that the film's portrayal of trauma was too dark for post-war audiences who preferred heroic narratives. Others felt uneasy about the raw depiction of despair. Rumors circulated that several theaters removed the film early because it lacked the patriotic optimism expected from war dramas. The studio shifted promotion to other projects, leaving this one adrift. Behind the scenes, the production was equally brutal. The cast filmed under punishing heat. Critics gave mixed reviews. Audiences never fully embraced it. Over time, The Purple Plain became one of those haunting films that nearly vanished. The film reminds us that not all battles are fought with weapons. Some take place inside the human heart. Number 8. The One That Got Away, 1957. This wartime escape drama entered theaters with a daring reputation. It told the real story of a German fighter pilot who became the only Luftwaffe officer to escape British captivity during World War II. Many viewers assumed it would be a simple propaganda picture. Instead, the film delivered a grounded, morally complex portrayal of a determined prisoner who refuses to surrender. That nuance made audiences uncertain and eventually pushed the movie into obscurity. The plot follows Franz von Vera, whose relentless escape attempts challenge both guards and himself. Picture the cold stone walls of British prisons at dawn. Imagine the creeping silence as he studies guard routines, searching for the smallest weakness. The film shifts from tension-filled prison yards to vast fields, rail yards, and fog-covered airstrips as he pursues freedom with fearless precision. Every escape attempt reveals his cunning and his unwavering resolve. But the controversy grew. Some British viewers felt uncomfortable watching a German officer depicted with such skill and nobility. Rumors spread that certain officials disliked the way the film highlighted security failures during the war. Others claimed that the sympathetic tone sparked complaints. Though the film was never formally censored, these murmurs pushed the studio to reduce its promotion and shift focus to safer projects. In the end, the film leaves a lingering question about identity loyalty and the thin line between hero and enemy. Number 7. The Way to the Stars, 1945. This wartime drama arrived with a reputation for quiet dignity rather than loud spectacle. Audiences expected heroic action, but instead found a gentle, melancholic story about pilots living with grief, uncertainty, and the heavy silence of waiting for missions that might end in death. Because it focused on emotion rather than explosions, the film was overshadowed by louder post-war blockbusters. Slowly, it slipped into obscurity, even though it remains one of the most sensitive portraits of wartime courage ever filmed. The plot centers on Allied airmen stationed at a British airfield as they bond, fall in love, and face the aching fear that tomorrow may never come. Imagine the soft glow of airfield lights against fog-soaked runways. Picture pilots sharing tea and quiet stories before dawn. Missions knowing each goodbye might be the last. The film lingers on these tender moments, revealing how war wears down the spirit long before battle begins. But controversy touched the edges of the release. Some whispered that military officials felt uneasy about the film's subdued portrayal of leadership, and its emphasis on loss rather than triumph. Others believed that the post-war public wanted celebration, not sorrow. As a result, the studio promoted other titles more aggressively. The Way to the Stars faded gently away, like a whisper lost in heavy wind. As decades passed, the film nearly vanished from discussions of wartime classics. Number 6. A Town Like Alice, 1956. When this Australian-British war drama premiered, it carried the reputation of a modest literary adaptation rather than a grand studio event. Because it focused on the perspective of civilians rather than soldiers, many viewers underestimated it. Over time, this quiet, grounded story was overshadowed by bigger, louder war epics. Without strong studio promotion, it became one of the great forgotten treasures of the genre. The film follows a young Englishwoman captured by Japanese forces in Malaya and forced to march with other prisoners across brutal terrain. Imagine blistering sun beating down on exhausted civilians as they walk mile after mile with no rest. Picture forests thick with danger and rivers filled with unseen threats. Through hunger, illness, despair, and cruelty, the woman and her group struggle to stay alive. Her unbreakable resolve becomes the core of the narrative, yet controversy circled beneath the surface. Some viewers felt the film softened certain historical details, while others argued that it depicted the horrors too vividly. In some regions, officials suggested shortened screenings, so audiences would not be overwhelmed by harsh imagery. Though no official censorship occurred, the quiet pressure led theaters to treat the film cautiously. Promotion dwindled, and public conversation shifted to other releases. Over time, A Town Like Alice became a largely forgotten film, overshadowed by its later television adaptation. Yet the original picture remains a raw, powerful portrait of survival hope and moral courage. Number 5. The Lightship, 1985. This unusual maritime war-related thriller arrived with a quiet reputation. It was marketed as a tense character-driven story rather than an explosive war spectacle. Because the film blended psychological drama with elements of moral conflict, it did not fit the typical mold of war cinema. As a result, audiences were unsure how to approach it, and the picture slowly drifted into obscurity despite its haunting atmosphere. The story centers on a lightship crew who encounter dangerous criminals at sea. Imagine a lonely vessel anchored in fog-shrouded waters far from help. Picture the eerie creaking of metal as shadows move across the deck. The crew becomes trapped in a deadly standoff, where morality, leadership, and fear clash in claustrophobic silence. Though not a battlefield setting, the film explores wartime themes of authority, humanity, and the struggle to maintain order under extreme pressure. Controversy soon whispered through industry circles. Some critics argued that the film was released at the wrong time because audiences wanted upbeat stories, not tense moral puzzles. Others claimed that the movie's uncomfortable themes unsettled distributors. A rumor even spread that promotional teams did not know how to market a film that felt both like a war allegory and a psychological thriller. These uncertainties limited its reach. In the years that followed, the lightship sank beneath the waves of mainstream memory. Few viewers today know it exists. Number 4. 12. O'Clock High, 1949. This wartime drama arrived with a reputation for intensity and psychological realism. It was not a typical action picture. It did not rely on grand heroic spectacle. Instead, it delivered a piercing look at leadership pressure and the hidden emotional cost carried by bomber crews in the early years of the air war. Because the film avoided glamour and focused on the crushing strain of command, it unsettled many viewers. Over time, faster, louder films overshadowed it, and its legacy slowly dimmed. The story follows a hard-driving general sent to rescue a demoralized bomber group struggling under impossible losses. Imagine the roar of engines at dawn as young airmen face missions with survival odds that shrink by the day. Picture tired faces lit by briefing room lamps as the general pushes his men toward discipline, unity, and courage. Beneath the stern orders lies a man slowly breaking under the weight of responsibility. His inner collapse forms the emotional core of the film. Whispers of controversy surrounded the release. Some viewers felt the film exposed too much about wartime mistakes and the brutal psychological effects on air crews. Others believed it portrayed commanders with too much harshness. There were even rumors that certain officials disliked how the film stripped away patriotic gloss. Although no official suppression occurred, these tensions caused the studio to shift promotional focus away from it. Number 3, The Hill, 1965. This powerful prison war drama entered theaters with a reputation for boldness. It offered no grand battles or explosions. Instead, it explored cruelty, discipline, and psychological torment inside a British military prison in North Africa. Because it questioned authority and depicted military punishment with raw detail, the film frightened some viewers and angered others. The uneasy reaction led to its quiet disappearance over the decades. The story follows a group of prisoners forced to climb a man-made sandhill under the brutal command of a sadistic sergeant major. Imagine a sun-scorched compound where heat burns the skin and hope dries like dust. Picture exhausted men collapsing beneath the weight of endless punishment as a moral struggle erupts between guards and inmates. Beneath the physical pain lies a deeper question about power, loyalty, and the breaking point of the human spirit. Controversy grew quickly. Some whispered that the film hit too close to real military scandals. Rumors spread that certain officials disliked seeing British military authority portrayed as abusive and morally corrupt. There were quiet concerns that international audiences might misunderstand the message. The studio responded with reduced promotion. Without strong support, the film drifted into the background. The production itself was grueling. Actors performed physically demanding scenes under scorching desert heat. Several cast members collapsed during filming and needed medical treatment. Critics recognized the film as powerful, but also warned that it was too intense for general audiences. Over time, The Hill became one of the most overlooked war-related films of its generation. It rarely appears on streaming services or television schedules. Number 2, Cross of Iron, 1977. This gritty Eastern Front war film arrived with the reputation of a bold, brutal, epic masterpiece. It dared to show the German perspective during the final desperate years of World War II. Instead of glorifying heroism, it explored betrayal, moral decay, and the violent collapse of an army trapped by its own command structure. Because it challenged traditional narratives, many audiences avoided it. Over time, it was nearly forgotten. The story follows a hardened German sergeant who clashes with an ambitious aristocratic officer determined to win glory at any cost. Imagine shattered forests consumed by fire and smoke. Picture exhausted soldiers crawling through mud as artillery thunder shakes the earth. The film reveals the horrors of a collapsing front, where survival becomes a matter of instinct, not ideology. Its tone is bleak, unflinching, and deeply human. Controversy exploded around the film. Some viewers argued that showing German soldiers with nuance was dangerous. Rumors spread of distributors refusing wide circulation because the film attacked the ugliness of war without offering patriotic comfort. The studio faced financial stress and promotional collapse. Cross of Iron soon slipped into cult territory known only to war film enthusiasts. It never received the mainstream revival it deserved. Number 1, The Train, 1964. This powerful wartime thriller arrived with the reputation of a tense action picture built around locomotives, sabotage, and daring resistance fighters. Yet beneath its rugged exterior lay a profound story about culture heritage and the value of human life in the face of destruction. Because the film refused to glorify battle and instead focused on moral questions, it unsettled viewers expecting a typical hero-driven spectacle. Over the decades, it quietly faded from mainstream memory, even though it stands as one of the most gripping war films ever created. The plot follows a French railway inspector who risks everything to stop a German colonel from stealing priceless artworks during the final days of the war. Imagine rail lines stretching into a haze of smoke and ash. Picture trains thunder through devastated countryside, while resistance fighters hide in abandoned stations, plotting impossible acts of sabotage. The film becomes a relentless race between obsession and sacrifice, as the inspector battles time-steel machinery and the ruthless determination of the enemy. Then came the whispers. Some argued that studios worried the film's message might confuse audiences. It was not about explosions or patriotic triumph. It was about the soul of a nation and the question of what is truly worth saving during war. Rumors even suggested that early test screenings left viewers conflicted because the film asked them to choose between human lives and cultural identity. Promotional teams hesitated. Marketing shifted towards safer titles, and the train began slipping between the cracks. As years turned into decades, the train slowly disappeared from popular war film discussions. It never reached the iconic status of larger blockbuster epics. 13 forgotten war films now return from the shadows, each carrying stories of pain, courage, sacrifice, and questions too heavy for their own time. Which of these lost tales struck you the most? Which truth still echoes in your mind? If you want more hidden history uncovered, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your curiosity keeps these forgotten worlds alive.